Two.
1, 2.
Hope everybody's doing well. This is Josiah Gano with the All Things Performance Podcast. We're doing a little bit different today. I got my guy on here, Chris Twumasi. Chris, how we doing, man?
Doing very well. Doing
Good. Man. My brother, man. My Ghanaian brother.
Yes,
you know
sir.
what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
We holding down the whole west coast of
Africa.
You know what I mean? We got Nigeria in the house. We got Ghana in the house. You know what I'm saying? So, man, pleasure to be here, bro.
Yeah, happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me on the podcast. I watch it all the time, and you have a way of saying things that can really help people. So I wanted to kind of combine my podcast, your podcast, put them together, and then let's see what we can do for the people.
Let's go, baby. Let's go. So we're gonna do something. I appreciate the kind words. First and foremost, it's all glory to God, man. So what we're gonna do to start off is just let the people know you're gonna be interviewing me. Mm-hmm. So at this point, I'm gonna turn the reins over to Chris. Mm-hmm. And Chris is going to interview me, and we're going to talk about all kinds of stuff today, man. Mental toughness, mental health, our spirits, feeding our spirits. And so, without further ado, man, I give it over to my brother Chris. You know what I'm saying?
All right. What's good, guys? Hope everybody's doing very well. Again, I'm interviewing Josiah here on things that are very important when it comes to spiritual, mental, and also physical toughness. We're going to delve into a little bit different realms, but without further ado, like you said, let's jump into it. All right, so what are some ways people can get spiritually tougher?
So when you look at something, it's a great question, right? Anytime you look at something that's tough, right? What are some synonyms? We look at things that are resilient. We look at things that are durable. We look at things that are steadfast. We look at things that have withstood the test of time. Mm-hmm. And so anytime when I look at something that can get tough, I always have to equate it with the word training. Mm-hmm. Right? You have to train, right? And a lot of people think training is, I'm going to go through this 12-step program. I'm going to go through this, this program that my coach made for me, whether it's a nutrition program, a strength conditioning protocol, some type of personal development program. Mm-hmm. A lot of people think that, I'm just going to do this and, I'll be good. Mm-hmm. One of the things I want to warn people is that when you look at training, any true training causes you, by definition, to step outside of your comfort zone.
Love it. Okay.
You cannot properly and efficiently train without being uncomfortable.
I like it.
So if you're training, whether you're in the gym, whether you're in some type of collegiate class, whether you're with your teammates, whether you're doing some type of workforce training, if you're doing true training, you cannot be, by definition, comfortable at the same time. Because training is causing you, by definition, to go to an unforeseen height, to go to an unforeseen level, to go to somewhere that you are not already there. So I'll give you an example. Every athlete, right? Like, why do we lift weights? Why do you think that we lift weights? I'm asking you a question now.
Now I'm being the interview. So we lift weights in order to strengthen our mind and also our body as well.
Okay. So I disagree with you.
Okay.
I agree with you, but I disagree that that's the core reason.
Okay.
When you start looking at the core reason, why does every athlete have a high emphasis on the off season and to train and to lift weights and to become stronger? Why? The reason why is because working out, training, lifting weights, fill in the blank, it causes you to overcome. Mm-hmm. When you're in the 9th inning, when you're in the 4th quarter, when you're in round 11 and you've already been knocked down in round 6 and you're just trying to get points so you can win, the training that you do is in place so that you can overcome. If I can overcome this weight, if I can overcome these sets and reps, if I can overcome my time on the conditioning, whether I'm running gassers, fill in the blank, whatever the case may be, if I can overcome and I start to practice overcoming, then guess what's going to happen in the real life scenario when I'm in a playoff game?
You're going to be able to overcome.
Exactly. Yeah. That's why you train.
Okay.
And that's how you get tough. Okay. So when you ask me this question about spiritual toughness, how do you develop spiritual toughness? You got to read your word. You got to go through tough things. The greatest among you will be the servant of all. You got to learn these principles, right? These laws that govern our faith. Right? Because when you start doing that, you got to forgive those who persecute you, those who say all manner of wicked things against you, those who despitefully use you. Mm-hmm. You got to do things that are contrarian to what the world is saying. Okay. So if you want to become spiritually tougher, you have to spiritually train. Facts. And it's going to be uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. You got to forgive those people who hurt you. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. You have to confront somebody who's may not be living right that you love. Mm-hmm. You see what I'm saying? Yes. You have to be able to admit guilt. You have to be able to not lie. You have to be able to not steal, not cheat. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So if you want to
Exactly.
become spiritually stronger, if you want to become physically stronger, if you want to become mentally stronger, fill in the blank, you need to train in such a way that it's outside of your comfort zone. Well, I don't really feel like doing. It doesn't matter about it. It doesn't matter. I don't feel like lifting these weights either, but I got to lift them.
Right.
Them weights ain't gonna lift themselves. That's sort of like inside joke that we had as athletes and coaches. Hey, these weights ain't gonna lift themselves now.
Facts.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I hope that answers your question.
It does answer it perfectly, and I think one of the biggest things that you hit on right there was that you have to like read your word and also get into uncomfortable situations.
Yeah.
And I think when we are growing spiritually, God will put you through those uncomfortable situations because you may have yourself here, right? You may think to yourself like, oh, I'm just content with being here. I'm just comfortable with being here. And then God goes, no, I've called you higher.
Yeah.
I've called you like more than that. What you think is like right here, what you're in. No, I have you up here. I have you up here. And he'll put you through those situations. And the whole time you're questioning, God, why are you putting me through this? It's like, he says, because you see yourself right here, but I see you so much better. And you have to go through those uncomfortable situations spiritually in order to get to the heights that God wants you to reach, which is more like him.
Facts.
So I think that
Facts.
you answered the question elegantly. And I also like how you said that training, you have to get out of your comfort zone. If you're not out of your comfort zone, you will not grow at all. It's impossible. It's really impossible.
Can I share with you a story?
Yeah.
So I've been a strength coach in my career. I've also coached in the private sector. When I first started off, I started training private clients. Mm-hmm. And one of my mentors in the game, Uzor Onwardy, shout out Uzor. Some of the clients that I was training at the time happened to be wives of professional football players. Okay. So if you can imagine, these wives are in here, and I'm training these wives. Mm-hmm. What can I possibly tell them? You know what I'm saying? I don't want their husband coming in. Hey man, take it easy. You gotta come. Hey man, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. And so I'm sitting there, and they're doing like core stuff, and they're talking to each other, and they're talking about what they bought, talking about the kids, and I'm sitting there like, man, just like as long as they do their sets and reps, I'm cool. You know what I'm saying? And I remember one day, Uzor came in there. He's like, Jay, come here. I was like, all right, man, what's up? He said, man, and look, they ain't training hard. And I'm like, he said, if they can have full-blown conversations like this, you ain't working them hard enough. Mm-hmm. And I was just like, dang. And I remember at that moment, like a switch went off, and I'm like, all right, ladies, here we go. You know what I'm saying? And I remember, I'll never forget that. You know, I didn't like break them off or anything like that. You know, something crazy. But in that moment, I had that mental connection. Like, yo, man, when you're training, you're not supposed to be comfortable.
Mm-hmm. Facts.
It's not supposed to be comfortable. No. Oh, it's too hot. Oh, it's too cold. Oh, I don't have the right clothes. Oh, I'm achy. It's supposed to be uncomfortable.
Good, yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
100%, yeah.
So I remember, hey, shout out to Uzor for teaching me that lesson early in the game. You know what I'm saying?
I love it, man. I love it. Absolutely. It's not supposed to be comfortable. It's not. And we are breeding people, especially, I talk a lot about men in my podcast, right? How nowadays men are doing this thing where they're just like, I don't want to face tough situations. So it's causing them to be weaker and weaker. Then you have to be tough. This is what it looks like to be tough. Right here, that's what it looks like. So every single time that you feel like, oh, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do this, I don't want to take care of my family, I don't want to lift the weights, I don't want to get physically and mentally tougher, or spiritually tougher even too, like discipline with God. This is what it looks like to be a true man. And also ladies out there too that are listening, this is what it looks like to be a true woman as well.
Oh, no doubt, man. The Bible tells us that we need to endure hardness as a true soldier in the Lord. You know what I'm saying? We have to endure hardness. You know, be not weary and faint not, for in the end you will reap a harvest if you faint not, right?
Absolutely.
And so it's one of those things where, man, this is part of it. You know, be not troubled, man, in this world. Don't be worried, right? The Bible tells us, because in this world we will have many trials and tribulations, but be not afraid, because I have already overcome this world, right? These are the words, man, that I read in my Bible. And hardness in difficult times is a part of our experience on this earth, right? Mm-hmm. And so as somebody who has a faith, hope, and trust in God, this is the toughest it's ever going to get for us, right? This is the toughest it's ever going to get. And so hardness is a part of it. Toughness is a part of it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. I love the way how you're able to recite Bible verses and stuff like that. It's a true man of God right here.
Hey, man, I was fumbling there for a little bit, so them pastors out there were probably like, okay, he got it. hey, real quick, so funny story. You know, it's not about being able to recite Bible verses, and you just need to know it. You need to know it in your heart, right? But I'll give you a funny story. Can I share it with you real quick?
Absolutely.
Can I share it with the people real quick?
Please,
So one of my guys, man, Chip Simmons. I think he still is. I'm not sure. He was the chaplain for the Denver Broncos.
Okay.
And so the Denver Broncos obviously would come out here every year for preseason. And so he said, "Hey Joe, man, I need you to cover the Broncos chapel." I'm like, "Man, I'm cool. Let's go."
Yeah, I'm down.
And I got mad stories, but I'm gonna share this one. So one of the years, Tim Tebow was a quarterback.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, "Oh, Tim Tebow, Timmy out here," you know what I'm saying? So I go in there, and the chapel starts to fill up. There ain't no Tim Tebow, right? So I'm like, okay, let's go. Like, we're about to do it. You know what I'm saying? I'm here for the people.
Yeah.
So we sit down. All of a sudden, Tim Tebow comes in. This dude had tailored suit. And the thing about an NFL chapel, man, is like, it's like a mixed bag. Because some guys are coming in there in basketball shorts with white socks and flip-flops. Some of these dudes come in there dressed to the nines. It's like, it depends on what time they're getting ready and buses and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it's a mixed bag. So Tim Tebow rolls in, tailored suit, Gucci belt. You know what I'm saying? Sits in the front row. And I'm like, "Hey, Tim, you want to pray for us?" "Yeah, man." So Tim prays for us. So I'm doing this chapel, and I'm reciting this Bible verse, and it was like in Hebrews, and it was talking about how Jesus, I forget the Bible verse, but I start quoting the Bible verse. For he, it was about the cross and despising shame. He went to the cross, and I'm like quoting the Bible verse. Tim Tebow's in the front row like this, like he's like reciting the Bible verse as I'm saying it, and I'm looking at him. I'm like, "Oh crap! Don't look at him because he don't mess me up." And he's like, he's reciting it like word for word, and I'm like, despise the shame. He endured the cross, and Tim Tebow's like reciting. I'm like, dude, I better come with my A game now because Buddy's on his game. You know what I'm saying?
If he know, I better know it.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So, but it's one of those things. I just want to encourage people who are listening to this. Like, it's not about, you'll probably hear us, quote Bible verses and stuff like that. It's not about being able to quote it. It's just about it being in your heart. You know what I'm saying? And so if Tim Tebow's watching you, you know what I'm saying, quoting Bible verses, don't get tripped up, dog. You know what I'm saying?
I always say when it comes to Bible verses, man, it's about knowing it, not just knowing it.
Yeah,
it's a difference. There's
absolutely,
difference.
man, absolutely.
So next question here I have is, what are some ways God has made you spiritually tougher?
Me?
Yes, you personally.
Oh, man. You know what, man? So I'm going to be transparent. So I don't know why, but for some reason in my life, God has always put me in situations where I've had to confront conflict. I've had to confront stuff. Like I couldn't let the abuse of power, I couldn't let, mistreatment of people, I couldn't let that slide. So he's always put me, since I was a kid, man, since I was a kid, like I've always been in situations where I've always had to stand up to power. I don't know why, man. And it's almost like, and I'll tell you this, to a point where if I didn't confront it, I started physically getting jacked up and getting sick. I've always been in situations where I'm not going to get into them on this podcast, but I've always been in situations where I've had to confront people who weren't right, people who were, doing stuff they shouldn't have been doing, people who were abusing their authority, who were mistreating people. I've always been in those situations, and in doing so, it's made me tough. Like I ain't afraid of anybody. Like I'm not afraid of anybody, and it's not because I'm some tough dude. It's because I know who's in my heart, and I know, you know what I'm saying, and I know who I serve. Facts. And it's not because of me. It's because of He in me. So that is one of the ways to your question that God has made me spiritually tougher.
I love that. I think that it's crazy that you say that you got like physically ill not doing something, and that's like how the Holy Spirit works, right? Is that like sometimes when He wants to move your heart, like as far as conviction, He won't make you do it, but He'll like do things in order to make you like move you towards His will, It's like He puts things in your heart so you go like, hey, that situation's not right, or you're not doing right in this situation, you need to do something about that. Yeah. And even your flesh or yourself fights and goes like, I don't know, and then God kind of goes, and then you go, okay, all right, I'll do it.
Yeah. You can't outbox God, man. Man, God's providence is something that we don't want to mess with, man.
What do you think the true meaning of mental strength is? I saw a video that you did on this, and I really want you to explain this for the people, because what you said was very contradictory to what we believe mental strength is.
Yeah. So I want to get away from the term strength, and I want to just use the word toughness, right? So that's my background, that's my expertise. And when you start looking at mental toughness in essence is a characteristic trait that seeks to measure and understand how an individual responds to stressors, pressures, and challenges.
Stressors, pressures, and challenges. Okay.
That's mental toughness.
Okay.
How do you, and it's a trait, it's a character trait, right? And some traits are more dominant than others, right? I have black hair and brown eyes. That's a character trait in my family line that you will see for generations. My children have black hair and brown eyes. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But when you start looking at some of these other traits, like these psychological traits that people possess, mental toughness measures to what extent an individual responds to, stressors, pressures, and challenges when they're facing adversity. Yeah. So your question is, remind me the question again real quick.
What do you think the true meaning of the mental toughness
true meaning
is?
That's what you said, the true meaning. Yeah. So, and that's exactly, that's my definition. And when you start looking at mental toughness, even from a scientific perspective, can you measure it? Absolutely, you can measure it. I always measure it, whether it's a self-report measure or what have you. Classically, if you want to start getting scientific and you want to start looking at the literature, mental toughness, there's four main components, right? Challenge, commitment, confidence, and control. Okay. So challenge is, I have this water bottle for those of you who are in the viewing audience. I have this water bottle right here, right? If I put it up here, it's the same water bottle, same situation. We'll call this a situation. I look at it here and I see something completely different than what you see, right? So an individual can look at a situation and say, man, they got us doing this, man, this is trash, bro. Like, what is this, man? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And another individual on a team or, on a family, in an organization or whatever, can look at the same exact situation and say, man, this is an opportunity for us to get better. This is an opportunity for us to grow. This is an opportunity for us to win a championship. This is an opportunity for us to get a ring. You see what I'm saying? Yeah, I'm tracking. So a challenge is one way that you measure mental toughness. How somebody looks at a situation. The other one is a commitment, right? And as simply put as you can, how long are you willing to stick with this thing until the very end? Okay. How long are you? It's gonna get tough. It's gonna get boring. It's gonna get mundane. It's gonna get hot. It's gonna get cold. How long are you willing to stick with it? A lot of people are quitters, man. They tap out. First sign. They tap out. Facts. I hate to bust on your generation, man, but like when you start looking at like millennials, Gen Zs, alphas, they approach the workplace a lot differently than my generation. Like I'm a Generation Xer, right? Or even I was born in 1980, so gotcha. Or even older gen. No, I'm young, bro. I'm young. Don't let the smooth taste fool you. You know what I'm saying? Hey,
if you know like Jason, if you watch this, I always call Jason old. He's 32. Anybody that's like older than me, I would say old.
Yeah, but this is the thing though, man. This is the thing though, is like, with the younger generation, I mean, we come from a lineage of workers who would stay with one company for 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 years, right? But the new generation, like the Zs, the Alphas, the Millennials, they're like, yo, I'm not going to be committed to this company because this company's not committed to me. So I'm going to go and jump around and I'm going to have 3 jobs. I'm going to have a side hustle. I'm going to do an online hustle. I'm going to do this hustle. You know what I'm saying? So commitment is how long you stick with something to the very end. Then control has everything to do with the extent to, how much in the driver's seat do you feel like you are in your life. Some people who go about their life, they leave things up to circumstance, luck, chance, deity, the universe. Si Dios quiere, whatever it will be. If it happens, it happens. Politics, right? And we've seen in the research that people who have an internal locus of control, right, people who take control of the drive of the steering wheel, they actually have higher levels of mental toughness, right? Okay. They have higher levels. Those who have an internal locus of control. You start looking at confidence, right? Confidence is the level of certainty that you have in something or someone. You and I both sat in these chairs. We didn't think about it twice. We just sat in them. Because we had confidence subconsciously in our mind that it's gonna hold up.
Yeah.
Right? A lot of people, their confidence is low in themselves or in other people because they don't have a high level of certainty in themselves or other people.
Where do you think that comes from? That low level of certainty in themselves. Where do you think that comes from?
They're building they build it on situational factors.
Okay.
If you build a house on a situational foundation, oh, it looks good today, guys. Yeah, we should be good. And then you come back, in 2 days or 2 weeks, still looks good. You know what I mean? Like, nah, man, we gotta do the test. We gotta dig. We gotta lay the foundation. We gotta pour the concrete. We gotta pull out the leveler. We gotta pull out all the equipment and make sure this thing is solid. We gotta bring the city out. Make sure that this thing is up to code with the plumbing, the plumb line, the infrastructure, the gas line, and then you build. Then you build. So to your question, a lot of people have a low level of confidence in themselves because they're not building on a solid foundation, or they're not plugged into a higher source. And we can talk about that later. So hopefully that answers your question.
100%.
So you have challenge, commitment, confidence, and control.
Okay.
Right? Those are the 4 areas in mental toughness that we've seen in science that determine who's tough and who's not.
Gotcha. I don't even have anything to add to that. That was just beautifully said.
Thank you, bro.
Beautifully said, orchestrated as well, man. That's that almost made me cry. No, I'm kidding.
Come on, man. Get out of here, man. Get out of here, man. Let's go now, man.
How does someone who is weak-minded get stronger mentally?
It goes back to the very first question you asked me about, spiritual. How do you get spiritually tough? Training. You got to put yourself in position to get uncomfortable, and you have to. And usually, the best way to do that is to link forces with somebody who knows the game. Get with a good teacher. Get with a good mentor. Get it, in a good group training scenario, whatever the case may be, right? To be able to do that. One of the things that I've been doing, and I have another one this month, October 25th and 26th, is the Separators 2-day challenges, and I teach this stuff, right? And these things help you with your mentality, whether it's building confidence, dealing with perfectionism. All these different things, I teach these things. So if you want to get tougher, you got to start training, right? We talked about it briefly before this podcast. You have you have a subconscious mind. Sub means below, and you have a conscious mind. You have to be very careful what you are feeding your conscious mind. You got to be very careful what you're watching, what you're listening to, who you're around, because the conscious mind is continually bringing in information. And once that conscious mind deposits it and downloads it into your subconscious, it becomes part of your feedback loop. And when times get tough, when times get great, whatever the case may be, you're going to default back to that.
Facts.
The Bible says in Psalms, I think it's 23:7, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. If you think you suck, if you think you're trash, if you think you're not good enough, right? And that's deposited into your subconscious, you have a problem because you're going to default to that.
Facts. 100%, bro. That's why why I started this podcast. That's why I'm interviewing you. That's why I'm doing everything that I do, because I want to get away from the realm of, you see so many kids nowadays in this generation that scroll on Instagram, TikTok, and scroll on just Facebook, whatever it may be. Look at memes or look at different things all day. But you're downloading stuff into your subconscious brain.
100%.
And I want to be that one podcast, that one reel that comes across your page that allows you to get that positive content where it's like, wow, I watch Chris and I really feel like I have better in my life.
Yeah.
He's talking about God. He's talking about mental strength. He's talking about physical strength. And those are the things I want to put in the Instagram feeds, the TikTok feeds and stuff. So kids and other people can stop feeling like they're like, I suck, I'm terrible, whatever. And even as well, I like to call this this new generation, the apathetic generation, because it almost feels like I'm a teacher, right? So when I look in the eyes of some of my students, it feels like they're very lost. And also they're very just apathetic towards life. So I'm thinking to myself, how can I use the gifts that God has given me in order to put that positivity into the world so people can feel like they belong, that they're loved, and also that they can conquer anything spiritually, mentally, and physically.
Yeah, you just got to keep doing it, man. You're doing a great job. You just got to keep doing it, keep building, putting the seeds in the ground, and the seeds will grow. So that's what you got. To your point, did you know? And I'm not going to say the names of the countries. I'm not going to do that. But did you know that there are some countries that they will, and we can get into algorithms and all this, that, and the third, but they will not forcefully, but it is kind of forcefully if you think about it, but they will intentionally and it's actually a form of propaganda, but they will intentionally block or intentionally show certain types of information to their country people.
No, I didn't.
And some of it is largely positive. So it's like, oh, our country's great. Oh, this is awesome. This is what we're doing in our infrastructure. Oh, this is what our youth look like. Oh, and their people are seeing this and they're like, man, we're living in this is the land of milk and honey.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
It's the promised land. Huh?
Yeah, but you come to the United States and you start looking at Instagram feeds and TikTok feeds, and it's just like you got these pranks, these twerk videos. You know what I'm saying? Shorty dropping it low right here. You know what I'm saying?
Everything.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like you start to see enough of that, you become programmed. It becomes a part of your subconscious, right? In the way you talk, the way you think, the way you respond, the way you react, the way you joke, and it's in you, right? It's just in you.
Right.
So, man, it's powerful, man. It's powerful, man.
Little mental health tip: stop scrolling on Instagram aimlessly. Stop it. It's not good for you. What are some challenges you see in the world that are preventing young men and women from being the best they can be? We kind of got into this a little bit, like I said, stop scrolling on Instagram and stuff. But what are some challenges that you see from a psychology perspective?
Man, I think what you feed will grow. I listen to that question. I'm like, man, whatever you feed is gonna grow, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, again, whether you're talking about a plant, whether you're talking about a puppy, or whether you're talking about a human being, if you keep feeding that thing, that person, that animal, it's going to grow. So when you start looking at challenges that you mentioned, right, that are preventing young people from being what they want, they are feeding the wrong thing.
Thanks.
They're feeding the wrong thing, man. So it's just like, one of my good friends, man, was telling me he's from Florida. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. We were talking about like pythons and stuff, and like all these like big snakes that they have out there. And they had a problem for a while because people would get these pythons. I think it was pythons. They would get these pythons and they would keep feeding them, right? And so you go to the pet store and you get a couple of rats, mice, whatever they eat, and this is like, oh, this is great. But guess what happens? Python gets bigger. Now all of a sudden you got to feed it bigger. Like I know stories that'll make your jaw drop with cats going and buying cats off of Craigslist, to feed them. And what would happen? They're getting bigger to a place where now these owners can't even contain them in their respective tanks, and then they have to let them go. You know what I'm saying? Into the wild. And
hey, Florida, you're the Wild West.
Yeah. That's the Wild East. That's the Wild East.
What is wrong with y'all?
So they're like letting them go because guess what's happening? At the end of the day, right? At the end of the day, you can't keep up that pace, man. Because now that snake is looking at you like, yo, man, you look really good. You are next on the menu. Like quite literally, you are the next one on the menu. Why do I share that story? I share that story in context of what you just asked me. The youth of America are feeding nonsense, feeding negativity, feeding doubt, feeding these things that we should not be keeping in our house. And what it's doing is it's consuming us. It's actually going to eat us next. Right? And so what I hate snakes, bro. Like I hate snakes. You know what I'm saying? Like that whole Bible passage, you know what I'm saying? That God was like, I will put enmity between you and the serpent and talking to the devil and Eve. Bruh, like that's me. I hate snakes, dog. I hate snakes. So my thing is like, why in the world am I going to feed something it's designed to take me over and to eat me and to consume me? That's what a lot of youth are doing. That's what they're doing.
Facts.
And now, and you can fill in the blank with all kinds of examples, but that's how I would answer that question, man.
Facts. I love that. I absolutely love that. I love the story too. The story was beautifully said. And like I said, Florida, you the Wild West, dog. I don't know.
Wild East.
I don't know what it is. I don't know what's wrong with y'all, but y'all need to get that figured out. In our society, I see a lot of people being apathetic toward life. I see a lot of young kids lost without a purpose. What are some ways a young person can gain a sense of direction in life?
I love that question. And, I believe in God. And so some people who are listening to this may not believe in God, but he asked me the question. And so I'm going to answer it just from my seat, right? Everything, to your question, everything is made for a purpose.
Exactly.
Every single thing. This mug right here that has my coffee in it, it's designed to keep a hot beverage so that it can nourish the end user, which is me. That's why this thing was created. That is its purpose. Okay? This water bottle right here was designed to contain water for such a period of time until it is consumed by the end user, which is me. Okay? That's its purpose. I can have you over there and I can toss you this water bottle and you can toss it back and we can just be throwing it back and forth, like, hey man, catch, hey, catch. And it's funny for about 60 seconds, right? And at the end of the day, it starts getting boring, right? Why? Because that's not why it was created. That's not why this water bottle was created, okay? I can have a football, same situation. I can have a football and I can play catch with you, and guess what? You and I can play catch all day. We can throw the ball all day. Hey, man, go on a post. Hey, man, go on an out. Hey, go on a dig route. Hey, yeah, I'm going to throw a fade. We can play football all day, throw football all day.
Facts.
Why? Because that's why the football was created, right?
Facts.
You have specific gifts, talents, and abilities that God put in you, Chris Twumasi,
Yeah.
right? And when you are living in your purpose, you can do it all day.
Facts.
That's how God created us. When God created the stallion to roam and to run on the plains, when that stallion is running, that's when he's the most happiest. When that eagle is flying, you know, in the sky, right, and using those tailwinds and just gracefully flying, that's when he's the most happiest. When the fish is swimming in the sea, back and forth and up and down and laterally, that's when the fish is the most happiest. Why? Because that's what God created it to do. And when you understand your purpose for the thing, the reason behind what I think was created, that's when you are going to be fulfilled. And the question that I asked, to answer your question even more specifically, I'm going to ask you a question, okay? If you have an Acura, right? Let's just say you have an Acura or a Ford, a Bentley, fill in the blank. If your car breaks down, just call it an Acura. If your Acura breaks down, where's the best place to take it?
To Acura.
To Acura.
Yes.
Why?
Because they're the ones who created the actual car.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They know the parts, the part numbers. They know where to get it. They know where all the resources are housed. They know everything and anything about that car. Why? Because they made it.
Right.
If you, my friend, if you that are watching want to know what your purpose is, you need to go to the person, the creator, the source that made it.
Facts.
I'll let you fill in the blanks. And when you do that, then you can be on that level of that stallion, that eagle, that fish, that when that creation is doing what they do, that's when they're the happiest. That's how I answer that question.
Can I tell you a story? Now can I tell you a story?
Yeah.
So I used to work at, I've had a lot of jobs in my life. I've been working since I was 12. I'm 26 now. And I remember every job I've ever had, except for the one I'm currently at, I've hated. And I remember this previous job that I was at and how unfulfilled I was there and how much it drained me every day because I wasn't fulfilling my purpose. And it actually caused me to have a lot of like depression and stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of negativity, negative thoughts, but also like clinical depression as well. I'm very open about that stuff, you know, because I want men and women to understand it's okay to talk about these things. But it caused me a lot of depression. It really triggered it in my mind. And I believe really one of the sole reasons is because I wasn't doing what I was intended and designed to do, which is I'm obviously in school to become a psychiatrist, to be a teacher, stuff like that. And when I wasn't doing that, and when I was at a job where I had to sit down all day and I was kind of just lollygagging or even focusing on my work, I remember at times where I'd be at the computer trying to work and I couldn't because I felt like almost in a way God was saying that this is not what you're intended to do, Chris. And I'm not saying that God caused my depression, but what I am saying is that my purpose that God designed me for was not being fulfilled. So it caused me to get in the lower mood. And I think also that's why a lot of people as well, when you see them at their computer desks or doing things that they're not supposed to do, that's why people have like suicidal thoughts, depression, and they don't want to live anymore because they're like, this is not what I was designed to do. So to the tail end of what you were saying, go to God to ask for the reason of why you were created. God created you for a specific purpose, a lovely purpose. We're all supposed to be here for a reason.
Yeah.
If you get the answer from him, you will always be fulfilled.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And one thing I would add to that is this, like, you know, yeah, some people might say, oh, well, I hate my job, so therefore it's going to lead to depression. Like, no, I want to make sure that I'm like that I'm very clear. You are going to go through tough times
Facts.
and hard stuff.
Facts.
We're going to have jobs that we don't like.
Yeah.
That we're going to, you just have to do.
Yeah.
It's part of life. You know what I'm saying? But when it comes to a place where, is that job my all in all? Is that, you know, we usually spend anywhere between 8+ hours on a job, right? So when you start giving that amount of time, energy, and effort to something that is not fulfilling, then that can get taxing. But there are times when you're gonna have to do tough things.
Facts.
Like, so I don't want people thinking, oh, I gotta find my dream job so that I can be happy. No.
Oh, absolutely.
I ain't never read that anywhere before.
Yeah.
There are things that you're gonna have to do, right, to bridge the gap. It doesn't necessarily mean that's your end purpose, but you're gonna have to go through some tough times. But I just want to make sure that people are clear that just because you are in a tough spot right now, tough times don't last always.
Facts.
So
100% agreed. Yeah, it's not that like the negativities of jobs cause depression or anything like that. Even to the people who are feeling like down and low in their jobs currently right now, start working towards what you really want to do. But you will have to go through those tough times.
Yeah, absolutely.
You will have to. It's a part of life. That's how we get stronger, right?
toughness.
Exactly, toughness. That's how we get tougher, is by going through things that are hard in the moment, but can lead us to victory as well. And that can teach you something when you're actually doing your dream job.
Yeah, no doubt, man.
Yeah.
No doubt.
Strength isn't always mental or physical. Sometimes you need to have strength in situations where your character is brought into question. What are some things you have taught your athletes to strengthen their integrity on and off the field?
Well, so this is an interesting question, and this is how I'm going to answer this. So when you start talking about integrity and strengthening and integrity, it's like Tony Dungy, man. Tony Dungy said it the best. Like, there ain't levels to integrity.
Okay.
Dog, you either have it or you don't.
Facts.
Are you lying or are you not? There's no such thing as a half-truth.
My dad always said that a half-truth is still a lie.
Yeah, there's no such thing as a half-truth, partial truth, my truth, your truth. There is the truth, and that's the way it is. Okay? So when you start coming to integrity, see, the thing about it is you're the only one who knows every lie you've ever told.
Facts. You be you.
Yeah, you're the only one who knows every lie you've ever told, man. So there ain't no levels to this. Like, oh, like I'm going to strengthen my integrity. No, just be integrous. I'm going to strengthen my character. No, just do the right thing, even when it's uncomfortable. Why don't we do it? Why don't we do the right thing all the time? Because it's uncomfortable.
Facts.
Because it's easier for us to pocket this money instead of reporting it. It's easier for us to go ahead and take this when we shouldn't. It's either for us to make ourselves look good when we really didn't do the work. Like
Facts.
it's either you are integrous or you're not. And you continue to do that over a long period of time. And guess what happens? You start to build your integrity and your character and your reputation and your legacy. There's a story about in the Bible about Samuel, and Samuel's the one who came to anoint David to be the next king of Israel, right? And if you read the Bible, one of the things that you'll learn real quickly about Samuel, the Bible says that Samuel's words never fell to the ground, meaning that he was a man of integrity. When this dude said something, it was on and popping. You can cash that check. That's what that means. And he was known throughout the entire region. And so when you start looking at the story of David, when he came to anoint David as king, Samuel didn't even know who it was. God told him to say, hey, man, I want you to go anoint this person. And he's going to be in the house of Jesse, right? And as soon as Samuel rolled through, everybody was scared. Why? Because they knew that Samuel's word was bond. They knew that this man spoke facts, truth, and his power was coming from God, and he was a man of integrity. And when he said something, it happened. So if you want to strengthen your integrity, start doing the right thing all the time, regardless of what it may cost you, regardless of who's watching, and regardless of how you feel.
Two things I want to hit on that you said. One of them is when you're talking about truth, right? And a lot of nowadays, I see people saying, "Oh, speak your truth, speak your truth."
Yeah.
Whenever I hear that, I'm just like, get that out of here all the way, because you can say it's your truth, but that doesn't mean it's your truth. Doesn't mean it is the truth.
Yeah.
The truth is the truth. That's it. It doesn't matter if it's your truth, his truth, their truth, whatever it is. It's just whatever the truth is. So stop with this whole speak your truth stuff. No, just speak the truth. And the second thing you were saying is how do you be better with your character and have more integrity? And you were saying just have integrity. Just have better character. Jocko Willink once said, he said, discipline equals freedom. And it sounds so cliche, and it also sounds so simple, but it's the truth. And it's literally that simple. You want something, just do it. That's it. There's no, like you said, 30 steps to doing this, 30 steps to having better integrity, 30 steps to having better character. It's just, no, just do it. Just do the right thing, you know?
Just do it.
And so many people are like, well, how do I do the right things in such situations? Just do the right thing. That's literally it.
Yeah.
It's just like, it's a simple equation that gives you great results.
Yeah.
Just that.
Yeah, and everything is governed by laws and principles, and if you try to violate the laws and principles, you're going to pay. You're not going to, depending on who you believe, gravity has only been defeated one time. If you go to a 10-story building and you think you're going to jump off of it and be straight afterwards, you know what I'm saying, be good, like you got another thing coming.
Facts.
Because it's a principle that you cannot violate.
Yeah.
And if you are somebody who is an integrous person, right, things are always going to find a way of working themselves out for you in the end.
Facts.
They're always going to work themselves out for you, because that's where, you know, when you start looking at in the eyes of God and the eyes of man, that's when you're going to be justified, the doer of the word, the people who are actually doing the right thing, doing the thing. That's when you're justified.
Amen.
So,
facts. Amen. All praise Jesus. What are some ways a person can work on their weaknesses, whether it is in their spiritual, mental, or physical life? And we talked about this a lot with training and stuff like that. But a person that, let's say someone has a weakness that they constantly identify themselves, whether it's on the field or whether it's in their character that they don't like. Would you tell them that, hey, this is what you need to work on? And even if it's just you need to do that thing, how do they do that thing, even though they may be afraid of that challenge?
yeah. So I think one of the things is to answer that question is very simple. First of all, you need to identify it and acknowledge it. Period. First and foremost, like, hey, you know what? This is not a strength of mine, right? And so something that's not. There's an old saying that he who represents himself in the courtroom is a fool, right? Why? Because there's a certain language, there's a certain tone, a certain tenor that lawyers have that judges know and understand. And if you don't have that and you go into a courtroom and you try to represent yourself, you're going to sit there looking like a fool. So and that's going to be a weak. Why do I use that analogy? Because it's a weakness. A lot of people, for 99% of us out here, understanding the law is a weakness, right? In terms of, the legalities and stuff like that. So if something is a weakness, you got to acknowledge it and you got to go and do something about it. Go and get an expert, go and get a mentor, a coach, a teacher. Hey, can you help me with this? Hey, can you help me? Help me train in this regard? Because this is something that's not good. Like, it's something that I'm weak in, right? And so that's the very first thing, is to acknowledge it, man. And then bring in help. You know what I'm saying? And once you can bring in help, then after you do that, you secure the help, the mentorship, the training, the teaching, the instruction, the care. Then you need to apply yourself. Nothing changes until there's movement.
You can lead the horse to the water.
Yeah.
Make him drink.
Exactly. Nothing changes until there's movement. Okay. One of the laws of energy states that an object in motion will stay in motion until acted upon by an outside source, an outside force. The same thing is true. An object at rest will stay at rest until acted upon by an outside force. If you keep doing those things and living your life the way you've been living it, with all the weaknesses that both you and I have, we're always going to be weak in that area until it's acted upon by an outside force. That outside force can be a teacher. It can be, again, a mentor. It can be a program. It can be you going to church. It can be somebody just telling you something, reminding you of something. It can be an epiphany. It can be a realization, right? It can be just a few words that somebody says that just sparks, this fire in you. But an object at rest will stay at rest. An object in motion will stay in motion until acted upon by an outside force. And you have to go and find out what that outside force is to help you to really key in on your weaknesses. That's how you have to do it. So you have to acknowledge it, bring in help, apply yourself. You get that outside force to start applying itself to those weaknesses, and that's how you move the meter when it comes to weaknesses.
I love that. Absolutely love that. Another little story for me. That's one of the reasons that, like, I remember when I first truly got saved, like, and started walking in the Spirit with being a Christian and stuff like that, and following God. One of the things that I had a lot of weakness, I had a lot of areas where I could be better spiritually in, and God was helping me with a lot of stuff until He sent me different people. So, for example, I always shout this dude out, Jason Fieser, best friend, and he has, yes sir, this is Jason Fieser. He has helped me a lot in my life. That's one of the mentors in my life. That's one of the people in my life that have helped me with my weaknesses. Even Devon as well, Devon Cunningham, who I've had him on podcast as well. Great guy, my brother right there, has helped me a lot in my weakness as well. You're talking about finding mentors, teachers, and people who can help you in your weakness. Those are the people that have helped me in mine. So anybody that's dealing with any kind of weakness and wants to bring people in, don't be afraid to ask for help at all. Don't be too prideful. Don't be too arrogant to where you say, oh, I don't want to ask anybody. No, there's people out there that know a lot more than you do at whatever area you have in your weakness. Go find them people and ask them for help.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, spot on. And this is another thing I'll say, right? So there's a flip side of that, right? An object in motion will stay in motion. Object at rest, stay in rest. So the law of entropy states that anything left to itself will tend further and further towards disorder, right? So if there's something that is in your life and you just leave it, I don't need no help with that, it will tend further and further towards disorder.
Why do you think sheep have a shepherd?
Exactly. I mean, it's like, exactly, because they're just go all over the place. You start having, like, let's say you have a garden, right? If you are not proactive in terms of taking care of that garden and tending to that garden, there's going to be weeds, and the weeds are going to eventually come and just ravage it, right? Whether it's your personal care, whether it's your vehicle, if you don't take care of your vehicle, an object, a situation, anything, a person left to itself will tend further and further toward disorder. So you have to apply energy to it. You have to have an outside force come to that situation to overcome entropy.
Facts.
So if you don't have a mentor, if you don't have something that's higher, a higher level, like pushing you toward, order, it's going to tend further and further towards disorder and dysfunction, chaos, and ultimately destruction.
I love it. Facts, 100%. Motivation is often looked at as the way to succeed in life. We are constantly bombarded on the internet with different ways to be motivated in life. I say personally, while motivation is helpful, it is not where you need to put your focus. Your focus needs to be on discipline. What do you think about the difference? What do you think is the difference between the two? And which one should you put your focus on?
Well, I have a different take on motivation. Motivation is ephemeral. It's fleeting, but you need it though, right? One of the ways that you can build confidence from research is what we call verbal persuasion, right? So verbal persuasion is not only the internal dialogue that I'm having with myself, but the external dialogue that I entertain with others. That's why you see these halftime speeches, these speeches, and it just motivates us, right? You hear a speech from Dr. Martin Luther King, you hear a speech from Billy Graham, Ray Lewis, Ed Reed, Kobe Bryant. You hear these speeches, these great orators, these people who are great with their words, Mike Tyson, Les Brown, right? It motivates you to go and do something. Right? Why do you think when you go and click on YouTube videos, YouTube workout motivation or, mindset motivation, there are tens, hundreds of millions of views, right? Because it does something to us chemically. And I'm not going to get into that in this podcast, but it does something to us chemically that we actually feel good. But what happens is, it's fleeting. I have 4 kids. So it's like, hey, go pick up your stuff. Go clean your room. Go do this. It's hard to motivate people and to keep it going. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
So motivation does have its place. It does build confidence. Hey, if you guys clean your room, we'll go get ice cream. Oh, yeah. Hey, if you guys do this, we'll go, oh, okay. You know what I mean? Like it has its place. Motivation has its place, but it's fleeting. It's ephemeral, right? Discipline is something completely different, right? Discipline is actually doing the work. It's a stylized, formatted way of attacking your business, regardless of weather, regardless of surrounding, regardless of environment or mood, emotion, feeling. That's hard. That's hard to do. But what happens is, you know, the bamboo farmer knows that, hey man, I'm not gonna see any fruit of my labor for at least 3 to 5 years. At least 3 to 5, I'm not gonna see anything. But guess what I gotta do? I gotta go out there and tend the bamboo farm. I gotta water it, gotta make sure the sun's hitting it right, gotta make sure that soil is taken care of. I gotta keep away insects, and I gotta keep away any type of predatorial, animals from jacking up what I got going on. And I gotta do this for 3 to 5 years, knowing that I'm not gonna see a dang thing. That's discipline. That's a different beast. And I think that you have to have a good balance of both of them. You have to have a good balance. I think discipline is what produces fruit. Motivation is what allows you to enjoy the fruit.
I'm tracking.
You see what I'm saying? Like motivation allows you, because again, I'm not gonna get into it right now, but motivation, it feels good. It feels good to get motivated. That's why people love going to church on Sunday. They may not be doing what the pastor says, you know what I'm saying, Monday through Saturday, but it feels good to go. It feels good to go and watch a great movie, an inspirational movie, right? A motivational movie. It feels good. It feels good to watch a great YouTube video, right?
Facts.
It feels good.
Yeah.
But the feeling of good ain't gonna help you get results when it's snowing outside, when everybody doesn't want to work out. When your team sucks, when your family's going through a hard time, when you're going through financial hardship, when you're going through physical pain, that stuff doesn't feel good. Discipline doesn't feel good.
Facts.
So discipline produces the fruit. Motivation allows you to enjoy the fruit. You know what I'm saying? And it's like more real and tangible. And at the end of the day, man, like it's a balance.
Facts. I love that. I absolutely love that. The truth. People deal with imposter syndrome when they're put in a new position, given a promotion, or have the limelight on them. What are some ways to prevent this, and how does one deal with imposter syndrome?
So I'm not, again, man, that's a deep question. It's a long podcast waiting to happen. But when you look at Clanton Imes, imposter syndrome, I teach this a lot. Imposter syndrome, somebody who suffers from imposter syndrome is an individual who, it's a double-edged sword, right? It's this inability to internalize success and this fear that you're going to get found out as being a fraud from your peers, right? It's a double-edged sword. And so there's two things that you need to understand. And when you look at imposter syndrome, it's looking at high-achieving individuals, people who have achieved success very quickly. A lot of people who suffer from imposter syndrome are individuals who come from households where they're high-achieving parents. Some of them are first-generation people that suffer from imposter syndrome. People who are pressured to be successful, right, in their families or in their organization. Individuals who are a part of minority groups. When you start looking at the research, there's a bunch of people who suffer from this, and it's usually high-achieving people in some of those categories or all of those categories. And there's two things that you have to answer to overcome it. And again, this is a short answer for a longer answer. Is that
part two?
Yeah. You have to ask yourself, am I good enough and do I belong? And the answer 10 times out of 10 for most people, I'll say 9.9999% of the time, 99.99% of the time, the answer is yes. Because for you to even be talking about imposter syndrome and be in that space, you are probably a high level achiever. You're probably really good at what you do. You know what I'm saying? And yes, you do belong, right? So am I good enough? Yes. Do I belong? Yes. So, I don't want to unravel it too much, but imposter syndrome is a real thing for high achievers. And if you can answer those questions, you can overcome it. And there's things that you can do to fortify that.
Love that. Last one. Burnout is a word that is thrown around a lot today, and it happens to the hardest working people. What are some ways people can avoid burnout?
So you start talking about burnout and apathy and all this, that, and the other. All it is failing to acknowledge the extreme, right? So you start looking at the law of polarity, right? Like for every positive, there's a negative, right? There's no such thing as a one-sided door, a one-sided piece of paper, or a one-sided pancake. It doesn't exist.
Possible.
It cannot exist. It cannot. So if you're burning out, quote unquote, you're going hard on one end of the spectrum, right? What's the other end of that spectrum? What do you think is the opposite of burnout? I'm asking you a question now.
Laziness.
Is it though?
If you're talking about each end of the spectrum,
So somebody who's burnt out, somebody that's going mad hard at their trade craft, right? What's the opposite of that?
I would think it's somebody that is not just not going out as hard as they possibly can at their trade craft.
Okay, so this is what I would say.
Yeah.
I see where you're going.
Yeah.
What I would say is that the opposite end of that spectrum is somebody who's going hard at restoring themselves and building themselves back up.
Okay.
Right? So, and again, it's a spectrum, right? So you have lazy people who just don't even care. They're just like, whatever. But I would say the opposite of burnout is somebody who is going hard at just restoring themselves, right? And building themselves back up. Now, when you start looking at burnout, I always go back to the buckets. What are the buckets, right? When you start looking at mental health, what is health? Health is something that's free from sickness and or disease. That's what health is.
It's a temporary state of being.
So what?
It's a temporary state of being.
Yeah, health is something that is free from sickness and or disease. So if you are mentally healthy, that means you are free from sickness and or disease or some type of baggage, load, or obstacle that's barring you from becoming free in your mind, right?
Yeah.
So when somebody's being burnt out, they're not paying attention to the opposite end.
Tracking.
So what I do is I call them buckets. So if you look at the biopsychosocial model for my psychology majors out there, biopsychosocial model, right? You have the psychology, you have the biology, and then you have the social aspect, their environment. And what we have to do to overcome burnout is I call them filling our buckets. We got to fill in our buckets. So psychologically, are we listening to music? Are we meditating? Are we reading good books? Are we going for walks? Biologically, are we drinking water? Are we sleeping? Are we resting? Are we meditating? Are we being exposed to nature? Are we letting the sun hit our skin, right? There's a whole thing about that in nature and just walking. One of the best things that you can do for your mental and physical health is walking. There are studies that have been linked to long life by just walking, right? For every 10,000 steps, it really accentuates like life. It's unbelievable. And then you start looking at your environment, the social aspect, right? Is your home safe? Do you have quiet zones? Do you have time set aside to read, pray, to be quiet? What's the paint color in your house look like, right? I'm sorry, but if your house is painted red all over your house, that's going to affect you, right? Do you have space where that you can just be pensive, reflective, and just think, right? So when you have these things, and another thing with biology too, understanding what your genetical predispositions are, right? Like in my family line, do I have a history of hypertension, diabetes, X, Y, and Z, because I'm more likely to be predisposed to that. And getting on top of that, on top of my biology, it helps me, right? So when you start looking at the buckets, the more and more of these buckets that I fill, the more healthier I become. I'm going to say this quote and I'm going to end here. When it comes to burnout, right, there's a quote that I heard a long time ago and I absolutely love it, man. It says that if your output is greater than your intake, then your upkeep will be your downfall.
Whew.
If your output is greater than your intake, meaning if what I'm putting out is so much, it's just greater than what it is that I'm putting back into myself, then my upkeep will be my downfall. So when you start talking about burnout, that's what it is. It's you're putting out, but but you ain't putting nothing back in. And if you ain't putting nothing back in, you're going to be doggy paddling in the middle of the ocean. And it ain't I don't care if you're Michael Phelps. I don't care if you're Katie Ledecky. You ain't doggy paddling in the middle of the ocean for long before you sink. So that's how you answer the question of burnout is what are you filling your buckets with, right? Is your output greater than your intake? Because if it is, we already know the end of that. So that's how you answer that.
Love that. Josiah, beautiful podcast. Elegantly explained. You are a genius, a role model, and a scholar yourself who has helped many people. And I can say that you are doing God's work. And from a young man to someone that's older than him, I definitely appreciate your podcast and everything that you do.
Well, I appreciate you, man. I don't know if I'm a genius yet, but I'm not a genius, man. I'm just trying to, you know what I'm saying? I'm just trying to figure it out myself. And I appreciate you being on the podcast today. And for all our listeners, thank you again. This is Josiah Igano for my proxy host today, Chris Twumasi. God bless you guys, and we'll talk to you soon.
Be easy, man.
All right.